see your mother. You were only given one, go see your mother. And you know that you will never have another. Go see your mother. Go see your mom.
Welcome to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I'm your host, Sadia. This is my mother, Ema. Hey, Ema.
Hello, my sweetness. So nice to be here next to you
Yes,
instead of far, far away on the phone.
so far away.
Yeah.
So today's topic, we're going to be talking about the various phrases parents will say to their children. Now, some of them you might know, like you're crying, you something good to cry about. You know, children should be seen and not heard. But
When your father, when I was starting to gain weight, would tell me women should be heard and not seen.
very cute,
Yeah.
very cute. I love it. But you had a few other ones that you had on your own accord.
There were a few things like if I told you kids like little things, the kids have to go to bed on time. They don't want to go to bed. They don't like this. They don't like dinner, or they don't like what you're telling them to wear. Whatever they have to change their clothes. We're going to some place. You have to change your clothes. But I don't want to change. When you kids would say to me that you didn't like something I was asking you to do, or you didn't like dinner, whatever, I would say to you, what makes you think what you like is of interest to me?
Yeah, it's funny because I have this moment in my head where I'm thinking of like it's like taking your kid to like the candy shop or you're shopping at a supermarket and there's a candy aisle. The kid wants something. You say to them, "Oh, isn't it nice to want things?"
Well, I was at the store, at an electronics store in New Jersey one time, and this was many, many years ago. And this man comes in with his kids, and of course, it's an electronics store with video games, and they get excited. He goes, "Hey, kids, want something?" And they all go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Good, keep wanting it." And you kids, I forgot who I was with, but whoever was, I think it was with you or one of the other siblings, and she cracked up laughing and said, "That sounds exactly like something Tati would say."
Do you remember any little tidbits, any sayings that your parents would say to you?
Let me see. I complained that one of my siblings hit me. My father was, "Well, how did he hit? How did I didn't have brothers? I had only sisters. How did she hit you? Did she hit you like this?" He would smack me. Or did she hit you like that? There was one. There was one also. I have a list here of things I remember one time lighting Shabbos candles. Parents will say things sometimes to tease their kids, not to put them down or anything, but just
Rip them a little bit.
right.
Keep them in line.
And so I was lighting Shabbos candles. I was saying, I say Brooklyn's for all you children. Keep my life safe, healthy, and well. Please give them Hatzlacha Rabbah and good health. And then you were sitting right next to me at the time, and I said, "And please help the geek to be normal." And you cracked up laughing.
Very, very cute. So would you ever wish you wanted to say something to your kid, realize it would be too mean or cruel, they wouldn't get it? Do you ever have those moments?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't remember anything like that. Usually, remember saying anything that was really hurtful or biteful to you, because I remember, unfortunately, I was raised in a household, unfortunately, where that was done. And I remembered how much it hurt. Like, I remember my mother one time saying to me that I didn't have any friends. That really hurts a kid to say.
Because you didn't have any friends?
Some friends.
So why did you say you didn't have any friends?
Yeah, no.
Just get under your skin?
I don't know what.
Did you piss her off?
I wasn't popular. My older sister was very popular.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because my parents raised her with a very good self-image. And so she related well.
Mm-hmm.
Because me, I had bad, poor eyesight. I had learning problems that went along with that. For sure, in this day and age, I would have been diagnosed as being on the spectrum.
I mean, you can still be diagnosed to be on the spectrum. It's not stopping you. You can just go ahead and take a test.
It's too late now for me, but it's not too late for you.
No, it's fine.
So anyway, and I tried to keep away from statements like that, but I remember one time one of you kids complaining that when kids get older, when you have older kids and very young kids, the older kids naturally would go to bed at a later bedtime. I mean, they're getting older now. They have schoolwork, especially junior high, high school, and the younger kids would say, "Why do you let him or her do that, but you don't let us do that? You don't let me do that?" And at one moment of exasperation with that, I said, "Because you're adopted and we don't love you as much. Happy?"
Oh, I thought it's because that's when your mother said you because you have no friends. That's why.
No, well, no, but my mother, one of the things my mother used to tease me about was I looked different from everybody else, from my other two sisters. My other two sisters resembled my parents in coloring more, that they had coal black hair
Hmm.
and they had olive skin, but not as dark as mine.
Okay.
And on the other hand, I had darker skin than they did, blondish hair. I
Hmm.
had light brown, especially when I was younger. I had very light, like blondish hair. And like my mother said, wow, that's one of the things that impressed her when in those days they knocked women out and then brought you the baby 12 hours later when you woke up. And so when they brought me over, she goes, wow, blonde hair. She was very impressed with that. Uh, so she would tease me about, she would tell me that I was adopted. She goes, well, look at the family. Your sister, we all have black hair, blondish hair. She don't have dirty blonde hair. It was called dirty blonde at the time. And, we are all like kind of light skinned and you're, pretty dark skinned.
Did
She would tease me like that.
did they ever have? I guess did anybody in your family focus on skin color and focus on these differences, like more? Speak of the devil. Uh, Here,
Well,
let me do
yeah.
this. You just do this,
Yeah.
and it goes in sound.
Okay.
So, did your parents ever like obsess over skin tone, skin color with you, or with your siblings, or did you notice them talk about that when you were growing up?
I wasn't aware of it.
Mhm.
I was not that much aware of it. Although my mother said that, um, when with her family, like her father was was like, olive with black hair. He was from Southern Poland. Her mother's family though, they were all blonde and blue-eyed and they were, tall and very light skinned. They were from like the northern part of Europe. And she remembers when they were family get-togethers that she was like considered like the ugly one. Like both of her sisters were, very, very white and light and hazel eyes and blue eyed, and and so she looked like her father, with the darker features. And she remembers how the relatives kind of like made over her sisters and kind of ignored her. And she says, when I didn't know this was going on. I would go to family gatherings. I was too busy running around and eating the sweets. That's how I was interested in eating the sweets and running around. But she told me that when I was little and they go to family gatherings and her part of the family, my father's part of the family, they were also like they were Ukrainian, so they were more on the darker side.
Yeah.
And so she said that some of the people in her family like started to kind of ignore me.
Hmm.
And so she told them, if you keep doing this to my younger daughter, this is the last time we'll be at any of your gatherings.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So they really okay. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
she put her foot down to them. Yeah, but that I wasn't aware of that until much later.
Hmm.
When I was a teenager, my mother told me about that.
So, yeah,
Hmm.
so when you were a teenager,
Hmm.
though, I guess like did any of your friends feel, you know, skin tone focused when it came to who they would hang out with or who they would be friends with, or you?
Uh, Not really. Really, I got a little bit of teasing sometimes.
What would they call you?
Well, when I come back, well, not my friends, but when I would come back from the swimming pool from spending the entire day out in the sun at the swimming pool, which was what I loved to do, I would come in the house, and one of my cousins, who resembled the whiter part of the family, was very, very light, with hazel eyes and blondish hair. I'd come in the house, and my cousins, we lived next to each other, so we
Yeah.
hung out at each other's houses. And I would come in the door, and she would say, "Hi, Schwarze."
Okay. All right. Wow. I was ready for something disturbing. So, I guess my follow-up question with that is, what about Tati's side of the family? Did they have any like? Because Tati's side of the family, they were all mainly just very light skinned. They didn't really have anybody that was more or the dark complexion. But did they have any of those experiences or have friends with those experiences in regards to?
No, not really. The Jewish community is the Jewish community.
Yeah,
Baruch Hashem, we
it's not as terrible as other spots because there's still I guess because when you're in the Jewish community, there, at least from my experience, there's definitely this camaraderie where you can speak your mind a little bit more than if you were in other settings.
But there was my best friend I remember in junior high and high school who also went to our swimming pool was just the opposite. She was almost an albino,
mm,
very, very white. And she, in fact, she had to be real careful. She had to wear t-shirts. She had to put sunblock. She had to be real suit. And we were best friends. And we'd walk down the street. Our friends would laugh at us because night and day.
gosh. So
Oh, one thing I want to also talk about, like, the way that sometimes we were talking about discipline before. There was some discipline measures that when the kids were like real, real little, like 2 or 3 years old, that were really funny and it didn't hurt, but it kept them in line. Remember the patch on the nose?
oh yes.
Yeah, we would, if you kids did something wrong or messed up something or whatever, or didn't listen, we would walk over to you, me and your father, we would take our finger, not hard, but just go like that, real light touch. We go, now you've got a patch on the nose, and everyone is going to see that patch, and they'll know how bad you were. And they would start crying, go, kiss it off, kiss it. Okay, we'll kiss it off. We'll kiss off the patch, but you got to behave. We'll kiss it off, and we'd kiss you on the nose to kiss off the little patch.
I do remember that actually. I remember the patch on the nose.
Did
Um,
it work? Did it keep you in line?
as a kid, you definitely it allows you to understand and accept
When
shame.
you're like 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah, because it helps you comprehend the importance of being shamed for doing something negative. I think nowadays there's not that much shame, which I think is a problem.
Mm.
I think having those moments of shame and feeling like you could do better, like helps you grow. So it's definitely something that I can definitely, appreciate now. And I think it's a good way for kids to learn. I think it's important.
Another method that we did was we would tell you, now you have to stand in the corner, like you turn around, you have to stand. This is an old one, standing in the corner with your
Yes.
face towards the wall. Stand in the corner, put your face, stand in the corner there. Hide your head in shame. And we would put that. It was so funny that you're like 2 or 3 years old. Khani, I remember Khani one time. Your older sister Khani. They would put their head down and go, hide your head in shame, hide your face in shame in the corner. You go like this, and then we would turn you around and say, "We forgive you," and we would give you a hug and kiss.
It's very, very cute when, like little kids feel like a little shameful, a little cry, like just a little bit, not terrible. But like, do you remember any like cute ways your parents would punish you? Cute ways.
Cute ways.
So what can
They had, well, I remember standing in the corner. That I remember being hit. Oh boy, I mean that was when I was growing up. That was the law of the land.
that was just how it worked? They didn't.
Oh boy.
So who came up with the patch on the nose thing?
Did
You did?
yeah.
That's really, really cute.
Your father also remembers like when he was a kid.
Yeah,
His mother washed his mouth out with soap.
I remember that.
Thank God my parents never did that. That's one thing my parents did not do.
Tati
Thank
did that to
God.
me. He washed my mouth out with soap. He would put hot spices on my mouth because I have a potty mouth as a kid. I had a
I never
hardcore potty
liked
mouth.
that. I would yell at him. I never liked
It
it.
didn't solve anything. It
I
didn't
never
solve
liked
anything
it.
because I never really. First
No.
off, now I like spicy things, so I just. And it's like I remember the taste of soap, but it doesn't. I don't really think of anything that how it was solved.
Mhm.
It's
It just teaches your kid to be cruel and mean.
no, I don't think it teaches the kid to be cool or mean. I think it's just something where it's not. You're trying to teach them a lesson, but you're just taking your anger out on them.
But I saw a woman who she didn't do it, but she would threaten and take out a container of dish liquid and put it on the table, put it near the kid, and the kid would, but she never really did it. She just did it as a threat to keep the kid in line.
If you weren't judged, would you wish how you would treat your kids or how you would punish your kids?
If I what?
You weren't judged. There was no.
Judged.
Yeah, you didn't feel guilty. Like how would you punish your kids?
Pretty much like, uh reflection chair, timeout chair,
Mm.
reflection room. They basically, being isolated, think about what you did type thing. Talking about like disciplinary measures, this from what I've read in the, various psychology books and the podcast, whatever, psychology podcasts, the Matty Jojo, they say isolation, reflection chairs, reflection, all this should be the child's age, time, 1 minute for each year of the child's age, plus 1 minute.
When do you feel accomplished as a parent with these methods of teaching and I guess punishment? Like because you put in you put in so many years
Mhm.
to raise your children right. So what points in your life?
You see it, basically, you see it, thank God, when they're getting in their teenage years, and you see, thank God, that they're not the type of kids that get, thank God, into serious trouble. And thank God, I mean, all teenagers are mischievous. They, as teenagers, we all try to push the limits, whatever. A kid that's raised with those type of, um, I would say, what are you trying to say? Limitations, limits. A kid that's raised to respect limits
Mhm.
will only go so far, thank God, and not get involved in serious, in serious trouble. Like, not they won't get involved in trouble that, God forbid, would land them in juvenile court or something.
Mm.
They,
So I guess when it comes to teenagers, then how would you? Because I'm thinking back as a teenager, I don't think I got punished. I don't remember anything being.
You don't remember me smacking you in the
Yeah, it was you were so.
when you were
It was
this, and I'm like this.
it was so comical. It wasn't feeling like a punishment. I thought it was funny.
So
I,
did the rest of the school, and
I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was hilarious, and the fact that I got sympathy from the principal was even like a double down. It was even greater because I didn't care either way. Why did I get in trouble? Why did I get into trouble?
I forgot what it
Um,
was.
Normally,
Did you badmouth a teacher or something?
no. Most of the time, I get in trouble because I would get into fights with kids. I get into
Oh,
fights a lot.
yeah.
I
And
definitely get into fights.
because it a lot of parents, this is a very big complaint, very big phenomena of kids that will bullies will bully and tease a child, and then when that child is being like backed into a corner by these kids, when that child reacts and by punching them, your kid gets in trouble. That kid gets in trouble. That's being
Yeah,
bullied. And it's I know it's worldwide.
it's a worldwide
It's a
phenomenon
worldwide
where they're
thing.
trying to like stop bullying and stop massive, aggression. But I think it was I probably got into a fight.
Hmm.
Probably got into a fight with someone. I think
These are high school boys.
yeah,
Boys are aggressive.
yeah, high school boys with like 13-hour days,
I know.
and like
And very little outlet
very little
yes,
outlet.
for
You have
for physical activity.
physical activity, maybe
Yes.
get like a half an hour in the morning, an hour at lunch, and an hour for dinner. And that's your physical outlet. And with the advantage we had was if we had gym and gym landed on the last period,
Oh yeah.
we got like a long dinner, or we would get up and we would just leave. We would
Hmm.
leave school.
Yeah.
We wouldn't go to gym because gym was just a
Mhm.
waste of time, anyways.
Well, there was a very famous story in history. I think it was the coach of the famous football team of Notre Dame. I think his name was Niraki, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. And one of the young boys, one of the football players, unfortunately got killed during a very aggressive game. And so the United States government was actually considering outlawing collegiate football
Mhm.
because of that. So he came in front of the United States Congress and gave a very moving speech, the story went, where he said all young men have natural aggression. And he says that's one of the reasons why in many foreign countries they have so many wars, because there has to be a way for these young men to let off this natural aggression. And if you don't have sports, then what we're going to see is what you see in Europe. He said, where you have this constant warfare. And he says our choice is this. He says either we have sports, contact aggressive sports like this, like you know, like uh, tackle football, where these boys can let off this energy and let off this natural, or we're going to wind up seeing a lot of violence.
Yeah.
And so they bought it, and they backed down. They did not outlaw collegiate football as a result of the speech that he gave to Congress.
See, That's the thing I find frustrating when it comes to male aggression. Everyone's trying to tame it. Everyone's trying to calm it down because they see the damage it can cause, but you can't stifle it. It's just gonna burst out some other way,
Yeah.
some other how.
Mm.
Um, but I wanted to actually dwell a bit on my school back in the day in high school. Yeah, there was originally there was like basketball was actually big in our school, but it got so big that like Sports Illustrated came to the school and everything like that. So it got big enough where the schools themselves shut down the whole the basketball system team. They closed it off, no longer allowed. And all they had was just like intramural basketball where like you can play the basketball game. It's just like it's usually the last period of English, so you can take off the last period of English, or it's like after school on Fridays. And it's just like I put in 13-hour days.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go ahead and be involved in sports that way, where it's just like it was to me, it was just more of it was I just wasn't interested. I like sports, I like playing football
Yeah.
especially, but it just was very frustrating.
I think I've heard about, it's interesting about the religious schools. Some of them do have are involved in competitive sports
Yeah.
in the entire local conference where they actually play against the regular, like the Catholic schools and everything, and they actually are involved in that and they play, and I think it's a very good idea. I think that teenagers, especially, teenagers have, like, they have a lot of energy, and they really need to channel it in a constructive way. And I think it's very good for I think it's very good for these kids, to have this outlet and to be involved in competitive sports because we have a lot of people who are very talented in that area, and I think they should develop it. And I don't know, that's my opinion. I mean, there are many from people who would take issue with that. Okay, you're entitled to that, but I just think that um, I'm not an extremist.
Hmm.
I'm not a purist, and I mean, I raised your kids more of like a middle of the road type upbringing where, um, you know, where I let you develop your creative outlets, and I thought that was very good.
Yeah, no, I definitely the problem I had now looking back, because I'm an adult now, like a full-fledged adult, and I kind of want my kid to go to the schools I went to. I'm realizing the frustration that I had when I was in high school, where the hours were so long and everything was so demanding that it didn't give you any chance to breathe, and they didn't want you to have a chance to breathe because they were scared of what you might do, and they felt idle hands would lead to other things that they shouldn't that would be inappropriate. Which they're not wrong with that logic, but it's just like I felt that no one could trust me.
Hmm.
That I couldn't no one could trust me, and I'd have to constantly sneak around to just take time off, you know, and it was just a frustration with the rules as well, with the dress code and things like that. Where like I didn't care for a dress code. I wanted to go ahead and have more of a life in high school. Because in high school I didn't do anything except I was, I was in regular, not it was not 9 to 5. It was from 7:30 to 8:15, routine. And during the summer, I would go to random summer camps that I would, either go to as like a summer school because it was a summer school program, or I would got paid for as a lifeguard, or in the end, I don't know, I see what people were trying to do to help me grow, but it's like I felt like I couldn't say anything because if I said something, it'd be a fight, it'd be an argument, it'd be a whole issue, and it wouldn't be worth my time, and I wouldn't be able to get what I really wanted, and that's one thing I found very frustrating is that I couldn't get my voice out. I felt very stifled in a way where it's like I felt like I didn't have any option.
You probably didn't.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It's just but I'm like, what? As
Do you remember?
wait, I
Yeah,
just
go
want to
ahead.
finish this one thought.
Okay,
I
sorry.
would finish with one question, and that's why I'm saying this. is that how did you feel as a teenager with your schedule and everything you had to do? Because you went to public school, your parents, on some level were more relaxed than you were and taught you were. So, like, what bothered you as a teenager?
Well, my schedule was actually we had to be there. School started 8:15,
Okay, 8:15 to when?
and 8:15 to I don't know if it was like 2:30, but then after 2:30, I was always involved in orchestra or piano, violin, voice.
Yeah, you had extracurriculars.
I was involved in a lot of extracurriculars, Spanish club, biology club, yeah, all those different things. Um, so I was always kept busy, especially, and I was in Baltimore County Orchestra, so we had rehearsal
Hmm.
on Wednesday nights. I remember. Mhm. So and that was like 2 hours. That was like from oh my God, from like 8 to 10, getting back like then, getting then the homework. Oh my God, they really piled on the homework. They really piled. We had research projects. We had oh my gosh, homework was really it was hours and hours, and then to study for tests. I remember like every test that came up. Boy, I mean, I sat there and just studied. So I was, you know, my time was always filled up too. But when you said like nobody listened to you, or you didn't, it wouldn't have helped had you voiced your opinion. Do you remember many years ago there was a recording of a story with Rav Zusha Vanapoli with
Yes.
the Nodin, where he finds the Nodin?
Yes,
Yeah, right.
yes,
So do
yes.
you remember in the recording the young boy who's the chassid? He says, Mom, Dad, he says it's okay. I'll marry her without the Nodin. And they said, you be quiet. You don't know what you're talking about. He's the kid that's getting married with. Shut up. You know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I think that's the I guess the universal frustration as a teenager, where it's like you finally have the knowledge of being a shitty adult, but you don't really comprehend other things and therefore don't aren't respected in a way. And it's that frustration where like that's looking back as a teenager, it's just
Yeah.
like you really couldn't do everything and you really couldn't do anything. You kind of had to sit there and take it, and it was just like
Yes.
eating a lot of shit.
I found that too in high school. Having like teachers that were teachers and administrators that it was almost like they wanted to catch you doing something wrong. It's like they would like watch you all the time, and you know, if you slipped up, if you made an honest mistake, oh, that mistakes were not permitted. Oh my goodness, mistakes were not permitted at all. I mean, there was like very little communication, understanding. You were expected. We had this before, remember?
Yeah,
We were talking about rules in school,
yeah.
that made sense that don't make sense. It's just frustrating. I remember one of my education my one of my education professors was a Jewish woman who had been an administrator for a number of years. And, she was talking about school discipline, school rules, and she felt that she says, in the tribal cultures and in the ancient cultures, when a boy was like 13 years old, they would put him through these tests where they would tie his hands and stick him with all these pins, and he couldn't flinch and he couldn't cry. Or he would have to take like the Spartans, bow and arrow or something, go out into the wilderness and have to hunt and survive by himself. And after the test was over, he was a full-fledged adult. And she says, don't you think the few hours of pain, because in those cultures, they put their kids through a few hours of pain, and now they're full-fledged adults with all the rights and privileges thereof. She goes, isn't that more humane than what we do to our teenagers? She says, we take our teenagers and we put them through years of hell, years of torture. And one of the things that she took out issue with too was in those days in the schools, when you had gym, you were required to take communal showers. Why? I don't think they felt it was healthy for you that you worked up a sweat during gym and you needed to cool down, and they thought it was good for your health. And she said she never liked it. She said, so what? She says, we send them to class a little stinky and a little sweaty, you know, for as opposed to the psychological damage we do. And she said when she was a vice principal, whenever a gym teacher would bring a girl to the office who refused to take a shower, she said she would never discipline that girl, never. And the gym teacher would be really angry at her. Hey, she didn't follow the rules. She didn't. And she said, no, she goes, she feels uncomfortable taking a shower in front of everybody. That's okay. She doesn't have to. She said she would never discipline girls like that. So there were a couple girls that were phys ed majors. They were, studying to be phys ed teachers. And they said, for them, but they need to cool down. And she says, look, she says, the little bit of sweat that they work up is not worth the psychological damage we do by requiring them to take communal showers. I understand they no longer require that anymore. They don't do it anymore because there were so many complaints and charges of nebuch, sexual impropriety.
Yeah,
So they don't
I
do that.
went
They
to
don't do
I
that
went to a
anymore.
school that had there was no physical education. We literally went ahead and would play baseball or would play football, or it would just be an off period. It was never taken seriously after middle school. High school was actually a giant joke. There was no extracurricular in that sense. It was just you had Limudei Kodesh, Limudei Chol, trudge it out. We did not have homework though, which was good,
Mhm.
but we did have exams frequently. So it was like you didn't get you don't have homework, but you're gonna have an exam on Wednesday and it's Monday, so you better practice now right now. So we'd have to constantly review. Um,
Mhm.
but it was just like the enjoyment I got was from being around a lot of my friends that were there, and I really enjoyed, you know, the camaraderie. And some of the rebbeim were really good. Some of the teachers were okay. They weren't, but they didn't have a connection. You're not sitting down with them for 4 hours a day. You're having maybe 45-minute class, and that's it. You move on.
Mhm.
Um, like I had one teacher I thought was really cool. I liked him, but we never hung out because it wasn't like my rabbi who it would be from literally 9 o'clock in the morning till 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We were with the same person over and over again. Um,
By the way, my mother, you touched on something that my mother mentioned. My mother went to Western during the 1930s.
mhm.
And so it was an all-girls high school. And she noticed that in the single-sex schools, that there's a certain camaraderie because you don't have that boy-girl competition, going out and dating and that cattiness. And I remember I used to invite her all the time to the Beis Yaakov functions that we had. And she said she loved coming to these Beis Yaakov functions, that she noticed the same type of camaraderie among the Beis Yaakov girls that reminded her of the camaraderie that she had going to Western, going to an all-female high school.
I mean, I agree with that. As definitely growing up as a teenager, I was annoying where I wasn't allowed really to talk to girls. I wasn't really allowed to hang out with them. I, of course, broke all those rules, but the fact is, I wasn't allowed to.
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
I wasn't allowed to. But I did like the idea of going to an all boys school where you wouldn't be distracted or annoyed or frustrated or adding more drama to the difficulty of your teenage life. That was definitely something that I agree with. That's why I hopefully will send my kid to an all boys school. I think it's very important, um, especially in high school. But the thing is, when you were a teenager, and what I guess the thing is that what kind of rules did you not care for or break that were from the school wise?
School rules.
School
It's like breaking school. It's going up the down staircase.
What does that mean?
um, Literally going up the down staircase.
There's a staircase.
Remember, we discussed this before, that in my school was so overcrowded that there were certain staircases that were designated for down and certain that was designated for up. And the problem was, if you had a class that was by one of the staircases and it would only take you had just 5 minutes to get to your next class. And if you could get to that class just by going up the stair and the stair was right there, then you very quickly ran up the down staircase, because if you went all the way over to the other end of the school, to the up staircase, you would be late. And then they would yell at you for being late. But I was obeying the rules. I was going up the right staircase. Too bad, They didn't want to listen. They didn't want to listen to you about. But there was one time where our hallway was so crowded. I don't know why, but there was a bottleneck in the hallway, and it was so crowded you couldn't get through. So all the students were going, push, push. We're pushing each other to get through this hallway. Push. And the only way we got through, everybody was late. I mean, the whole school was late. And we get to the room, and the teacher starts to yell at us about being late, and we have to go get late. When you were late, you had to get a late note, which made you later. You had to go to the office, get a late note, which made you later. I mean, that was ridiculous. But anyway, so we all started to yell and tell the teacher about what happened. And when she heard our explanation, thank God, she said, "Oh, okay, now I understand. It's fine, no problem," like that. But the only other time I kind of broke a rule a little bit was I had one day where I had like two or three major exams, one class after the other. And that was three, no, two major exams in one class after the other. And by the time I was finished taking the second exam, I was wiped out. Totally. I needed a break. Our next class was an English class. The teacher wasn't there. We had a sub. Get the full round. So I said to the sub that I had left my math book in my math room. Can I please go get it? It's at the other end of the building. I've made up a thing. It's way at the other end of the building. So I said, sure, go get it. I just, it was a lie. I had not left my math book anyplace, but I put it. So I think what happened, I put the math book somewhere, and I picked it up. So my life would look normal. And so I just walked around the school a little bit because I just needed to walk around a little bit. And as I'm walking around, this boy who was friends with me, sees me walking around, and I think he had already graduated, but he had come back to visit. And so we were just talking. So he was walking as we're talking. And so the sub was wondering like what was taking me so long. And he looks out in the hallway just as this guy wants to say goodbye to me. And he says, okay, goodbye. And he holds my hand and gives it a squeeze and walks away. And it looked like I had purposely ditched class to meet my boyfriend, which it wasn't. So I come to the room, and the substitute says, did you really go to find your math book? I said, yeah, see, here it is. He goes, I need you to go to every teacher, every room that you went to, and get a note from that teacher that you were there looking for that math book. So, okay. So I went around to like 3 different teachers. I said, excuse me, I need to come here look for my math book. And the sub wants me to bring a note back saying that I was here looking for my math book. And I go, okay. So I walked around the room a little bit, pretending to look for my math book. And they write a note. Yes, she was here looking for a note. I did this with 3 different teachers. I came back to the sub. I said, here's the notes from the teacher saying that I was looking for
It's a cute story, actually. I like that. Did your parents ever cut you slack as a teenager for like various rules?
No, but I broke them anyway. I didn't care.
Okay.
All right. I took my punishment, and that was it.
Okay.
See, work means freedom.
Work means freedom. All right. Well, that ends our wonderful episode. Thank you so much for listening, and hopefully hear from you soon. That's another episode of Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. Thanks for listening to us kvetch, reminisce, and of course, get a little motherly advice along the way. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your favorite Jewish mother or anyone who needs a little guilt in their life. Got a story, question, or just want to say hi? Send us a message. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, call your mother. She worries.